be Councilmember McDermott can lead us in the pledge, and I have our trusty flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember McDermott.
You're welcome.
Take a quick roll call. Councilmember
Here.
Gully. Councilmember Gully.
I think I just froze.
There you go. I didn't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Councilmember
I think I
Ash
froze.
Oops, sorry.
Kim Ash McPherson screwed up my computer. Yes, I'm here.
What a surprise. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I'm here, and Anash just screwed up my computer.
Blame it on others. Look at that. Sue and I don't pass the buck. Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
I am present.
Thank you.
I think everyone else's computers though.
I'm here.
Nope. Councilmember Zaluski.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
All right. And we also have with us the mayor, the deputy mayor, our comptroller, and our planning commissioner. Thank you for joining us, and our clerk. I'm sorry.
And the Corporation Council.
Oh, gee. Okay. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for joining. Bear with me. I apologize. All right. We'll go right into the agenda. We have the approval of the minutes from December. Can I get a motion for those minutes?
I will make a motion that we approve the December minutes as produced.
Thank you. Councilmember Zaluski motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Councilmember
That's what I like to
Steele,
see.
seconds. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 7-0 of the minutes. Presentation of the agenda. It's actually a short agenda. There will be some items sent to us. I have been informed, so I do plan to call finance prior to the regular meeting. Depending what we've received for legislation will depend if it's 6 or 6:30. Public forum, no one signed up to speak, correct, Mara?
That's correct.
Thank you. Local laws, none. We'll go right into ordinance 2, ordinance amending the capital projects fund to allow for the closure of multiple capital projects. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 3. Ordinance 2 passes 7-0. Ordinance 3. Ordinance amending the capital projects fund budgets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember
Sorry.
Ash McPherson.
Monica, this is the old 6th Avenue Park down by the, up by in Anash's district, correct? Just want to make sure.
Correct.
And Anasha, have you reached out to any of the neighborhoods for like a meeting with?
I have not. It's been a busy month, but that's now that we have some real project under us, that's a good plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Sorry about that.
appreciate that. I do. And if you want some help with that, Councilmember Cummings, I'd be happy to help you. I know Councilmember Ash McPherson also. We can have Mara set up a Zoom, do virtually, ask Monica to join us and whoever Monica recommends. But I certainly, for Aishan's place, whatever is decided to put there, a sign or a tree or something. So stating that,
That's good. Thanks.
yep, I did have a question for Andy. Andy, is this TRF funding in addition to the 370 that's outlined in the budget? Or no?
So this is separate from the monies that, so they send unrestricted aid, which is the general fund amount, which is like 250, I think, off the top of my head.
Okay,
It's part of that account. It goes in gifts and donations, but it's not the only thing that's accounted for in that revenue line. The 75,000 from here is separate from that. So it's the additional funding that's allocated to specific purposes on an annual basis.
gotcha. So this will go into a specific line for Old Sixth and 10th.
Correct. So what after talking with the deputy mayor about this, instead of having multiple common project accounts, what I did was I put it within the capital project account for park improvements that was approved as part of the 21 capital plan, just to have alike projects together. But the 75,000 will be specific for these two parks.
Very good. Okay.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Monica, what are the improvements in the 10th Street Park?
Most of that was for the engineering for the retaining wall around the basketball court. And a lot of it is the basketball court and whatever we have available for the playground equipment.
Are we going to be paving the basketball court? Is that what you're saying? You're going to do new pave over that, or?
This is for the retaining wall. You know how we have those
Yep.
the weird pavers up there? So this will
Yep.
actually be a brand new retaining wall. It's a pretty significant project. It did go out to bid. I'm not sure if we've gotten the bids back or not, so I'm not sure the cost of it yet.
We're not doing anything for the court per se itself?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Further questions, discussion? All right, all in favor of ordinance 3?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Ordinance 3. Ordinance 4. Ordinance authorizing the city to create a capital project and amending the capital projects fund budget to allow funding for said capital project. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Council Members Zaluski, do I have a second?
Make a second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson, discussion. I did have a question, Andy or Monica probably. Do we have a timeline for the DPW gas tank removal?
They will do that in concert with the facility itself, so that once they dig and they replace it all, it'll be done in one project.
Okay. Very good. Further questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 4 carries 7-0. Ordinance 5, ordinance authorizing the city of Troy to accept grant funding from the Northern Borders Regional Commission for infrastructure work at and around 1 Monument Square and amending the capital projects fund budget to appropriate funding from said grant. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Council Member Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Ash McPherson. Monica, do you want to fill us in? I believe obvious that this part of most of the money is to move the piping for the sewer lines, but what else will be entailed? And will the city, and this is kind of more for Andy, would the city be on the hook for any match or funding for this?
Steve is here and he's the one he's
I'm
the one
sorry.
who applied the project.
Yep, sorry about that.
Right, so this is for the utility work, relocation of the water line, doing the stormwater separation, installing sewer lines to service the neighboring properties, potential retaining wall work. The city's not eligible or not responsible for the match, but there are three sources of funding here. There's the Department of State funding, which matches the NBR grant, and there's the city funding, which matches the Department of State grant. So we're not on the hook for any additional funding because of this.
And we've already matched that, I believe, in the budget, correct? Our part.
It's actually cash that we have reserved out from, I think Andy can fill me. It's from I think it's money that we actually have reserved in a special account for a number of years now.
It was the sale of the city infrastructure from previously, before Monument Square. So going that far back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the original funding that was set aside for the original cash match for the Department of State grants.
Gotcha.
There is an in-kind match as well for city employees and work as well.
And right, and that's city employee match of the NBR grant. So again, I think we have more than enough match at no additional cost to the city.
Okay. And I believe union work, local union work is going to be used on this project, I hear, correct?
Well, this will be a city project, so it'll be a prevailing wage project.
Or was that with the South Troy Road? I received an email that something was signed and they were very, very pleased. The building trades. I'll find the email and we'll talk about it at a later date. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Questions, further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Sorry. All right, ordinance 5 carries 7-0. Ordinance 6, ordinance authorizing settlement of claim to wit, Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company, ASO Kip W. Sheldon, plaintiff versus the City of Troy, defendant Tracy Court, case index number CV 2789-1E. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second, Councilmember Steele, discussion? Okay, no questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 6 carries 7-0. Ordinance 7, ordinance approving a grant of easement to Niagara Mohawk Power Corp. and Verizon New York, Inc. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson, discussion?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
I'm just having difficulty finding ordinance 7 on my PDF.
Okay, ordinance 7 was pulled. That was the shared services. I'm sorry, so this is ordinance 8. I apologize.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I apologize.
No, that's not correct.
I'm sorry. Ordinance 7 is the Niagara Mohawk easement. I apologize.
Okay, yeah.
Resolution 6 that was pulled.
Yep, so to be clear, the issue here is the table of contents in the PDF talks about ordinance number 7,
Okay.
but the ordinance itself is listed as ordinance 8.
That's
Not in
correct.
my paper.
Yeah,
Not
if you look at the backup, mine does say ordinance 8.
Mine says 7.
Okay.
I apologize. This was the one that was misnumbered. When it was originally sent over to us, it was misnumbered as 8, and then Julia corrected it to 7, but the originals must not have been corrected. So when I redid the agenda, I think that's why it still says 8 at the top.
Okay.
So I can fix that going forward, but I think that must be why. So
Yeah,
but on the agenda cover, it says 7, correct?
Correct. The agenda
Yes.
covers 7, yeah.
And
I'm
you're saying
talking
at
about
the
the
top,
actual ordinance in the packet, at least the one online on on our website.
right,
says
yeah.
ordinance 8.
No.
Yeah,
that-
okay, yeah, because they had originally misnumbered it and then realized they had misnumbered it and they changed it to 7. But I didn't realize that the heading still said 8, so I will correct that in the going forward. Sorry about that, that's confusing.
Is
Very.
it 7?
And yeah, and the resolution later got pulled. So that's, yeah. Thank you for fixing that. We'll have it fixed for the regular also. Do we have questions on the actual grant of easement to IMO and Verizon? Anyone?
Well, Council President,
Yes, council members.
I guess technically I still have the floor. So,
Sure.
yes, can we get an explanation on this, the easement? Obviously, it's for consideration of $1, which is standard, but can someone just summarize what we're doing here?
Council President, may I address the council?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, the purpose of the easement is to have, I think it's pretty well explained in the memorandum.
Utility pole.
Report. But the purpose of the easement is to relocate facilities that are currently on Campbell's Highway. There's one particular pole that needs to be moved to our firehouse facility in order to facilitate reconstruction of the bridge. This is all being done at the expense of the utilities, not at the expense of the city. But in order to reconstruct the bridge, they have to move the power line.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did read the memo in support. I did not read the grant of easement. I'm assuming you did. So
I did.
Yeah, so there's nothing in there that's troubling for the city.
No, it's the standard one. We've passed them before. It's exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Zaluski. Thank you, Rick. Any further questions? Discussion? What is the timeline for the Campbell Ave bridge? Monica, do you know by chance?
I don't have the updated schedule. I still know that construction is planned. They're supposed to let it out and then construction for this year. So that's still the plan. I can get more specific dates and have them sent over to you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 7 carries 7-0, not ordinance 8. Okay, we'll go to resolutions now. Resolution 1, resolution proclaiming the month of February 2021 as Black History Month in the city of Troy, New York. Council President Mantello, Councilmember Gully, Councilmember Ash McPherson, Councilmember Steele, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Zaluski, Councilmember McDermott, all of us. Do I have a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion, even though none of us are technically eligible.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Well, technically, I guess
Second.
I'll second that.
Second, Councilmember Gully. We'll read in full at the regular meeting if that works. And I believe Councilmember Steele has a question or a comment.
I'm just questioning the numbering. It says resolution 3, but you said
I
resolution.
apologize. Resolution 3. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Resolution 3. Numbers tonight. I will not be paying my bills tonight. Speaking of that, I do have a question for Andy at the end of the meeting. Okay, resolution 3, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, resolution 3 carries 7-0. Resolution 4, resolution appointing commissioners of deeds for the city of Troy. Council President Mantello, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. We have John Benolstein, Kathy Conroy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 4 carries 7-0. Resolution 5, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year agreement with the Bonadillo Group to provide independent auditing services for fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2022. Council President Mantello, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Andy did a very thorough check and worked with Councilmember Zaluski and myself, and we really felt that Bonadio has been doing a good job, has a good grip on the history of our accounting, and we did decide after some stiff competition, we really did get some good proposals, right, Andy?
Yeah, there was one, at least from my perspective, there was one that was very competitive with Bonadio. I think that just so all council members are aware, I think there were 6 responses.
Yeah.
3 of them were not local. I think there were 5 and 3 were not local. Is my, geography does play an important factor in scoring. So there were 2 local firms. The second firm, I'm not going to mention their name. But after, as the council president mentioned, between the 3 of us, it was decided to stay with Bonadio.
Oh.
They do a very good job.
They do. They do. Thank you, Andy. Further discussions, comments, questions? I did want to ask, will you be ready for your 4th quarter mid-February?
No. We changed the code on that. I think 2 years ago. We pushed out to April 30th.
Yeah.
I will be calling you about April 30th. There's a personal thing I have going on in April. So I will give you a call to discuss that.
Okay, fair enough. I did see, I know prior years, sometimes you had done it mid-February. That's no problem. And okay, we'll talk. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 5 carries 7-0. Resolution 7. Resolution 6 was pulled. Resolution 7, resolution of the City Council of the City of Troy calling on the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign a bill creating private property tax abatement for improvements to certain residential and mixed-use property. Councilmember Cummings at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
A tie by Councilmember Ash McPherson. Beat you to the punch, Councilmember Gully. Before we go into discussion, I do just want to apprise folks, I will be recusing myself from both the discussion and the vote on Reso 7, Reso 8. I am a policymaker in the New York State Senate, and my boss, State Senator, will be voting on these potential bills. So I advise her, so I won't be able to vote on these. So thank you, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Zaluski for sponsoring these, and I will hand it off. Is there discussion on this?
Yeah, Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
I spoke with Steve, who was with us today. I spoke with him earlier about this, and we found out that that $70,000 well, I guess I'll call it a abatement for lack of a better word, is actually not in effect anywhere in the city right now. So that was missing. And it was interesting because I was thinking to myself, I don't remember ever hearing about it, and I've certainly never advised any of my constituents to utilize it. It turns out that's why it doesn't exist right now. So we would need to pass something in order to get that going. Plus this. Now this is for, and Steve's going to correct me if I'm wrong, of course. This is for the $100,000 up. This is for major improvements on properties so that we can phase in the tax increases over time. But right now we don't have anything even for, I guess what we'll call minor to medium level improvements on properties. So if you were to put in a brand new kitchen into a property, cost you $25,000, $30,000. There's nothing right now that exists that would allow us to phase the tax increase in after the reassessment occurs for that particular improvement. So I recommend that we do enact that $70,000 one that's already been enacted by the legislature. We just have to do it locally. And then we should also, talk about this. I'm happy to support either. I know the big issue here was with respect to where it gets implemented in the city. As long as we have something that would cover the $70,000, that particular level, that the minor to medium level across the city, I'd be fine with allowing for the greater one, the $100,000 and up, to be in just certain parts of the city, the census tracts that we talked about last time. Because my guess is, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but my guess is that the properties that need the greatest amount of work are probably in those areas where where properties are more dilapidated and are going to need much more investment. But anyway, I guess that's a starting point for a conversation about it. And if you'll oblige Council President, I wouldn't mind letting Steve either correct my errors or fill in any gaps that I've created here.
No problem. Steve, before we go into it, do you want to, address a couple of those comments and add anything? And then I know other members would like to speak.
So no, other than it's the existing 421F that's approved at the state level is for $70,000 and below for 1 to 2 families. And the proposed 485 is above $70,000 for 1 to 4 units. So I think that is a good, as the discussion went at the planning committee meeting, where we wanted to make this available more citywide, I think that would be really a great way to do it, would be to adopt the 485 as proposed for the areas for 1 to 4 units in north of downtown and south, where you have these 1 to 4 units that really need substantial amount of improvement to make them to improve them to a really good quality house. And then you have the $70,000 and below for anywhere in the city. So I think that's a great opportunity or a great way to go about this. There was additional information that I have not had time yet to bring forward. So I spoke with Sharon, but I didn't get all the information I wanted to get on permits, although Anasha, Councilman Cummings, actually pulled some of the information while I was working on other stuff this week. So we have some information, but what I'd like to propose is maybe, I'd be happy to have this adopted tonight and then look at the 70 again next week, or we could talk about this, or not next week, but in 2 weeks for the finance meeting you're talking about, and maybe bring this back up again then. So it's not a time sensitive issue, but it would be nice to start moving this forward.
Yeah, I will just say this is totally on procedures. With my knowledge in the state legislature is normally the local bills are done more toward May and June.
Right.
So if the council does want to look at this a little more, I think you're very safe doing in March, but it's up to you. Councilmember Cummings?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to share my screen for a minute just to show a little bit of the analysis that I've done just to start framing the conversation a little bit. First, let's see. What do we share? There we go. So first, I will note under exemptions, the 421F, it looks like there are 2 people that may be taking advantage of that right now. But obviously, there's room for expansion there. And I don't know if those are legacy and we need to do some reenactment, or if it's just not well advertised. But certainly for those under 70,000 households, I think it's important that I think that's the primary group. I did get code permit data for all permits that have been over 70,000 in the last 5 years. So this is a map of those. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, it's really good.
So the red are the renovations of various valuations. And then the green you'll see, this is the new constructions. And this I think is one of the biggest things I learned from this data, which, obviously we've known that new construction is rare in the city. But I think that's a place where I think we all agree we want to incentivize as well. That's a place where this program could do a tremendous amount of benefit to encourage those infills. As we see, most of the infill in the city is this TRIP project in the North Central neighborhood. Other than that, it's really just a few scattered projects in terms of new construction. So those I think are revealing in terms of where we want to go in our discussion for, where we target it. Certainly, I think you can see there is a cluster of investment in the downtown and Little Italy sort of neighborhoods. But it's pretty spread out throughout the city, the reinvestment projects. But there's definitely need for encouraging infill as well, whether that's through this mechanism or another. And so that I think is hopefully helpful.
Can you scroll up the berg a little? I
believe that was,
wow.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. Okay. Not a lot.
Yeah. So the darker the color, the higher the value on that permit. The other thing I'll mention in my discussion with Sharon is it sounds like not all renovations spark a reassessment. So that's my next step, is to go back to her with this renovation data and see, how many of these even had a reassessment that would make them eligible for this permit or for this abatement.
Could you scroll south, Troy, too?
Yep.
Thanks. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Like,
so again, these are just the permits over $70,000 of value. So total rehabs for the most part. Obviously, there are folks doing smaller work all throughout these neighborhoods, I'm sure. I haven't pulled that data, but yeah, you can certainly see a cluster.
could you hit Sickaway and then the east side?
Sure, we'll keep scrolling around.
All right.
There's Sickaway.
This is great. This is good.
And there's the east side. Yeah, so hopefully that can inform some of our, I guess the core question is, what's our purpose in developing this program? For me, there are two big benefits that could be realized. One is encouraging infill development where there's a vacant parcel that someone hasn't prioritized building a new building on, because and this allows us to incentivize that in the same way that we incentivize other new construction, larger, big development, new construction. And then obviously the other is to encourage folks to do the renovation work on their existing buildings. I'm sure there are different possible policy tools we can use for all of these, but I suppose I'll open it to the floor for any further discussion on this.
I'm sure.
Chair.
Yep. Councilmember Gully.
Just a quick question, Steve. By utilizing this 421F and 485 and requesting under the same process, is it going to be all the same application process for both, and it'll just depend on the amount of investment into the property, or will there be any other specifics that could be involved?
Well, and I'd want to run this through Sharon, but it would involve contacting the assessment department, the bureau, before the work is done. So you're going to have to fill out a form, have an inspection done prior to the work being performed, then getting your permit going ahead, and then having an inspection done again afterwards. So, I mean, that's basically the process. I'm sure there's going to be a separate form for each one. Although, if you're going to be $68,000 versus $72,000 and break the barrier, I'm sure there's a way around that. There's So it might just be one form that handles both of them. But I would have to discuss that a little further with Sharon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I think-
Councilmember Gully. Further discussion?
Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Steve, just to clarify, because I think I might have misunderstood. If somebody was going to come in here and buy a 1 to 4 unit buy one of those units, would they be entitled to the abatement?
Well, it's not just for owner occupants. So if they bought a 1 to 4 unit and it needed a lot of work, yes, they would be eligible for it. And that's, I think, something we want to incentivize is for people to fix up 1 to 4 units, because they're not all going to be owner occupied.
I think, Council President, I think, I don't know if this is the point you were trying to make. I think to that point, though, we should discuss if part of our goal is to incentivize folks to do this work. Oftentimes the work is being done by someone who does turn around and sell it. Certainly the infill development, as from the permits that I saw, most of the infill development was then turned around and sold to someone else. And so if we're looking to incentivize infill development, maybe this isn't the right mechanism for that, or maybe there could be a mechanism for transferring the benefits to the actual owner so that we can incentivize that new construction of, we don't want to be accidentally incentivizing developers to build and just hold and rent the single family homes so that they can keep getting the tax benefits. We want to be incentivizing them to sell them to owner occupant.
Well, sorry, Council President.
Sure, Steve.
Yeah. Again, this is targeted at 1 to 4 units, so it's not really targeted so much for infill development, although that would be eligible. But we're looking for an improvement in the quality of the housing. So if somebody's going to buy it, fix it up, and continue to rent it out, and right now they're it's got horrible siding and bad kitchens, and the rents are low, and they're going to fix it up and make a quality product, I don't see that there's any downside to it, allowing investors to come in and use this. And again, there are statistics that the more you improve one house in a neighborhood, the more likely the other houses in the area will be improved as well.
Certainly.
Council President. Sorry.
Okay.
Hold on.
No, go ahead.
Steve, you're all set. We'll go to Councilmember Ash McPherson, then Councilmember Cummings.
Councilman Cummings just made me think when he was saying that. I just don't want to see people coming in here and buying a 1 to 4, getting this abatement, and then like flipping the house, and then a person coming that's going to buy it. Am I getting mixed up on that? Or I just don't want to see that happening. Of just taking it, getting the abatement, and then flipping the house, and then the new person that's going to buy it is going to be paying at the higher tax assessment. Am I?
Well, yes, they would be, once it's sold, it would be at the higher tax assessment. So they're not going to, they'll know what the taxes are going to be. So if it does not make sense for them to purchase it with that higher assessment, they're buying a better house, there's going to be a higher assessment. That's a calculation they'll have to perform before they purchase the house. But it does not transfer with the sale. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We improve the product there, it gets sold.
Councilmember Ash McPherson, do you have further questions, discussion?
Not at this time.
Okay, Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, I guess I just need to keep mulling over the pros and cons here. Obviously, I agree. In many cases, someone flips it. That's not where we want to be incentivizing. But if it didn't make sense to build a new house somewhere because you couldn't possibly sell it for what it costs to build it, but you could sell it for that if included in the sale price was the fact that the new owner will get a reduced taxes for a particular amount of time because this abatement exists. Does that make it more possible for folks to be doing that infill development? there's obviously there's pros and cons. And initially, I was thinking it was good that we wouldn't be allowing the transfer, because that means that the folks that are just doing flips aren't getting the benefit from this tax assessment, and it's the longer term owners that are. I guess the question is, in that business model of folks doing flip renovations, are we creating a pocket there where, rather than actually flipping it, where they otherwise would sell it, they're incentivized not to, and to hold on to it because of this abatement.
Chair.
Yes, are you good, Councilmember Cummings, right now? Okay, Councilmember Gully.
Anash, I understand what you're thinking, but I don't understand what you're thinking, and I'll tell you why. If a person buys a property, comes in and invests $70,000 to revamp it, they're gonna make additional revenue on the sale of that house anyways. The new person coming in will realize the price of that property and a tax obligation to it. And I think that they're either going to buy the house based on its merits. And before we had this program, houses were selling like hotcakes. So I don't really see an advantage to extending out the abatement to the new owner. I think that the flow of business is going to be what it is, and they're going to get their price for it. And then the city will shorten up that abatement and actually get their money faster. So maybe we have to look at the 50,000 taxpayers that will have an advantage when they do flip the property, and think that might just appease the situation properly, and shorten the time that we have the abatement in there, and still excite people to revamp their properties. And there'll be a lot of people, don't forget, a lot of homeowners that are not looking to just buy it and sell it, because a lot of people are buying and renting them out, and they would be excited to buy that house for $110,000 and add $50,000 improvement, knowing that they could get $200 more a month in rent. If it's all put out for them, they can show the advantage for them. I think this could be a great program to introduce. I'm not really on board with extending it out to new owners that would come in, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I wasn't either until I looked at the data and saw that it's really, we really only had less than 10 new construction, sort of infill, single family, 1 to 4. We've got a tremendous number of new construction, large apartment buildings, but very few new construction infill. I don't know if this is enough to incentivize that, but I do want to think about if this is a tool we can use to help encourage folks to do that. Maybe it's just for new construction. We have an ability to, or maybe it's a totally separate program.
Chair.
Yep, Councilmember Gully.
So Nasha, maybe that would work where we have a demolished building and an empty lot, a shovel-ready lot, that we could tell somebody, hey, if you were to buy this piece of property and you build a 2-family or 1-family home here, that maybe that would be an option to maybe extend that out to an owner coming in. But on an existing building, I don't think that would really fit the feasibility of this program. And but maybe, I mean, now that I think about it, maybe like on an empty lot, to get them to build an additional building and bring another property to the tax roll and bring some life into that opening in the block, maybe that might be something that would be good in that instance, but I don't believe it would be good in every instance.
No, I agree. I think we're on the same page there. I don't know whether this particular program is flexible enough to accomplish both of those things. I'll leave that to Steve and further discussion offline. But I do, I think there could be some big benefit if we can say, you get, and maybe we can designate certain vacant properties as eligible for, a reduced tax rate once they build on them to incentivize that. I don't know how to do that in particular. That's probably, anyway, it's probably further discussion.
No, it's a good discussion, even though I'm not participating. But Mayor Madden, do you have any input on this? I mean, obviously you worked decades with housing and rehabs. Do you have any input?
I don't honestly have a well thought out opinion on this. I think there's a lot of conjecture about what kind of development it will and will not incentivize. I would say that if we do not have the 485 in place for the 70,000 and below, we are going to need to look at the state statute to identify what flexibility we have in that regard. That may be a cookie cutter piece of legislation where we don't get to decide that we shorten the benefit on terms of a sale. So we're going to need to look at the existing legislation, the 485 legislation first. And then, I like where this is going. If we have the 70,000 threshold across the city and then bumped it up above that for certain particular areas, that seems to make a certain amount of sense, but I think we're going to have to evaluate whether it does what we want it to do over a period of years. I don't think we can sit here and project what it's going to do. So this is something that I think we take a first step, we do something, and we monitor it and see if it does what we want it to do. If it doesn't, then we modify it. If it does, then we congratulate ourselves.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Further discussion? Okay, it sounds like this discussion may be continued. So, okay, on this particular resolution 7, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0 and a recusal. Thank you, Mara. Resolution 8, resolution of the City Council of the City of Troy calling on the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign a bill to amend the Troy IDA Enabling Act, Councilmember Zaluski, at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Councilmember Zaluski. Steve, why don't you give a quick, you gave us all an update in planning. I don't know if you want to do a quick one again, and then we'll go into discussion. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Council President. This is really just updating the existing enabling legislation at the state for the IDA to basically, most of it's taken care of technical corrections, call it city manager, references to a treasurer, technical corrections that cite the wrong sections. Most importantly, what it does is two things. It eliminates the automatic termination when our bonds are paid off. So right now the IDA has one bond outstanding with the IDA, yet it has a number of with RPI, yet it has a number of outstanding pilots and projects going on. So if RPI were to pay off their bond, we would basically cease to exist. So what other IDAs have done is basically corrected that so that as long as they have outstanding projects, they can continue. So that's the main thing that we're looking for here, one of two. And the second one is just to amend section 1957 to allow the IDA to manage their own funds, just like the Capital Resource Corporation does and the Local Development Corporation does and other IDAs around the state, as opposed to mandating the management through the city comptroller. So Andy spends a lot of time, looking at the minutes of things we've already approved to be able to sign checks and approve things. So he would still have audit powers over the IDA, but it just kind of streamlines the process.
I can't vote or anything. I do have a question on that last one, more on the city side. Since the IDA would be managing their own funds, Andy looking it over, would Andy get and the city technical assistance money for doing that, since they're managing their own money now? You know how? Well,
actually, so right now there is a payment of $100,000 a year from the IDA to the city. So we would have to correct that. So we're not, functions have changed. So the city wouldn't get any less money. We would just allocate it differently.
Okay. And once again, I'm only asking on the city side, not on the legislation. I'll open it up for comments, discussion.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Steve, right now, the city manages the IDA?
Well, so right now I'm the executive director, and we have staff, Danae Ziegler, Dylan Turek, Andrew Kreshik, that perform duties, and then we have CFO for hire, an outside firm that is our bookkeeper. So basically, those are the people that work on the day-to-day issues with the IDA, and for that, the IDA does pay the city, reimburse the city for those things, including Andy's services. And Andy basically he'll look at the minutes and sign checks. And I don't want to belittle what you're doing, Andrew, but he does a number of functions with our finances. But this would take that off of his plate, and it's basically things we're already doing with the Capital Resource Corporation.
But the city is overseeing, correct?
Well, in the sense that I am a city employee, and Dylan and Andrew and Danae are city employees, yes.
Okay,
It's
so
it's one and the same. Yeah,
so
not one. It's not one and the same, but it's yes.
Right. But if I'm reading this correctly, is you want it as its own to oversee itself?
Not really. It's just the financial piece of it, the fact that Andy's signing the checks. That's the only difference here, is that we will have two signatories instead for the checks. Right now I sign them and Andy signs them.
Right.
This would be me and a treasurer of the IDA. So the city would still be overseeing the functions, the finances. And again, we get audited every year.
But that's taking Andy right out of the picture. He wouldn't be doing anything with it any longer.
On a day-to-day basis, no. And again, it's sending checks over to him once or twice a week to have him approve them.
Right. But again, I guess I'm looking at it is who's going to be actually, if it's going to be just run by itself now, I just want to see who's going to be following up and the checks and balances of it. I guess I'm looking at.
And again, we have a pretty good system for, our process for reviewing the invoices, signing them, having the checks approved afterwards. So it will be the IDA, but they are IDA funds. So,
Council President,
again,
can I interject for a second?
Absolutely, Monica.
So just to clarify, the Industrial Development Authority and the Troy Local Development Corporation are both separate entities from the city of Troy. They both have their own federal ID numbers, their own bylaws, all the operating documents, everything. They also are audited separately by an audit company just like us. And then they also are, the Local Development Corporation is also, and also the IDA, are also guided by the Paris reports. Through the state as well. So there is a lot of checks and balances and a lot of reporting that has to be done through those entities. So I don't want you to think that there is nobody looking over their shoulder. If anything, there's probably too many people looking over their shoulder because of the fact of the entities that they're created, and just because of the history of a lot of those entities, there's probably more oversight of them now than there has ever been.
and I'll just add that again, we have the annual audits. The Authority Budget Office does monitor the IDA, the LDC, the CRC, and the state comes in and audits occasionally. Actually, they're going through IDAs around the city right now and performing audits. So we were last audited, I believe, in 2014, and we can expect that we're going to be audited again in the near future.
This is also a little bit of housekeeping. Sorry, Andy. This is a little bit of housekeeping. This is the way that the organizations have run, even back from when I was in the planning department. There was a time period when Joe and Andy were part of the financial team, and then we were able to bring in the CFO for hire. For two purposes. One, just to have a separate entity looking at the functions of that, but also to give a little bit of ability for Andy and Joe to have some more capacity to do other things. So it is how it is operating. So it's just a marry of the housekeeping of that for purposes.
Can I just add a couple things real quick? First,
We'll go to Andy and then Councilmember Cummings, or if Councilmember Ash McPherson. Andy, go ahead.
to your question about checks and internal controls and checks and balances of that nature, since 2016, I've never found an issue at all when signing any of their checks. So their internal controls as it is are fine. In regards to, at the end of the day, it's someone else is going to end up signing the checks when it comes to that. And there's never been any issues. So whoever the signing goes over to, they're still going to, my understanding is it's still going to be the same process to process the check. So their internal controls are very sound in that regard. Got to dovetail too off what the deputy mayor said. This will eliminate very redundant work in my office when it comes to things like pilot payments, because the IDA and the city are doing the same work right now. That will be removed from this, and it will mirror the same process as followed at the county IDA, which that will remove over a day's work in my office alone, just from removing that redundant purpose. Not that, my office still maintains audit and review powers. Just in nature, the biggest activity of the IDA is the receipt of pilot payments. Those will still have to be reviewed and in theory audited per se on an annual basis in my office to ensure that all of them were paid. So there still will be, just in its innate nature of how we currently do year end, there's still a city check that we're getting all the funds that we're due. It's just removing redundant processes that exist right now between the IDA bookkeepers and what we do in my office. But I have never seen any issues with their internal controls when it comes to processing payments.
Councilmember Ash McPherson has the floor, and then we'll go to Councilmember Cummings. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not saying anything was being wrong. I just want to make sure checks and balances are still going to be in line, and that there's still going to be some type of oversee, that the IDA is just not going to go off on its own. I just want to make sure there's still some oversight in it. So thank you for all that explanation from everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. I'll just add one more layer of oversight. Obviously, Councilman Gully and I are on the board. There's always two council members on the board, and the board does get monthly reports, financial reports, which include all payments and expenses that have gone out. We don't review every check, but if there was a big check that didn't look like it was something that we had approved, we would see it in the financial report immediately. So there's that layer of checks as well that will continue to exist.
Further discussion, questions? Okay. Councilmember Gully, you don't have anything to add, I take it? No. Okay. Resolution 8, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recuse. 601. Resolution 8 passes. In closing, I have a couple quick things for Andy. I think the first thing, if you want to update us on the unfortunate snafu of the vendor who ended up sending lots of emails to lots of tri-folks.
Yeah, so I will update. This is my understanding. We have a phone call tomorrow morning with them. I play phone tag with them this afternoon. The impression I have, and if anything I say is incorrect, I will correct it in an email tomorrow. The impression, the Systems East or ExpressPay updated their system entirely over the last few weeks. It seems like they added an option that when we upload bills, you can send out emails to people that they were uploaded, which I think is a great function. What seems to have happened is there is an issue of people who there is an issue with email addresses of prior owners that has to be resolved. And that is my question for them tomorrow. So the email thing that went out today is a new function that they provide. I have already made the decision until this is all rectified, that box will be unchecked. So there should be no more emails going out. I am a little confused as to why it transpired today. And I apologize for it because we have been in there uploading bills every week. So there's going to be more follow-up tomorrow, but it is being created by a new function on in the back end of the Express Bay.
Sure.
You, Andy, I'll open it up. Councilmember Cummings.
I'll say I love this feature. In the old system, every time I paid a bill, I would check the box saying, please email me when I get another bill, and I never got an email. So that was frustrating. So it is nice to now be getting the emails. Certainly that box just said subscribe to emails from this address. They don't have the records as to who, they don't have updated records as to who owns it. I could subscribe to updates on anyone's bills. I think, well, maybe I have to pay them, but it's not necessarily associated in their system with the property owner. It's associated with whoever's paid that bill in the past. So, certainly now that it's newly being used and probably has some old data, I can see how it would cause a lot of confusion. And maybe if there's a way to send an email to folks with clear instructions as to how to get off the list for the property that they don't own anymore. But it'd be tough to, if they only have an email address associated, it'd be tough on your end to make a call and say, hey, this person's email address doesn't seem like it matches the property owner. They don't get updates anymore because maybe it was maybe it's the child of someone who's, paying their bills online for them or whatever else. So I don't, it seems like a tough thing to resolve, except to allow users and give users the information to unsubscribe. I think it's an incredibly valuable service to be able to remind people about their bills digitally. So I'd be hesitant to scrap it just because it's got a little bit of bad data in it.
No, I think it's a great function. I'm only scrapping it until we can get it resolved. My instinct is telling me that what Councilmember Cummings just said is going to be the fix, is that people are going to have to opt out of this individually. And if that's the case, then we can work on getting language out.
Are they able to export
in all communication forms to get that out there? But my instinct is telling me that that's the direction we are headed in. Like I said, we're going to talk tomorrow.
Are they able to export for you all the email addresses so that you can send them a more customized email saying this is actually from the city, here's the information about how to do it? I would imagine they could, but
it's on my list to ask.
Okay, great.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Andy, how are you?
Hello, my friend.
Hey, I actually love the concept of the program, and I maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I'm trying to sit here and thinking, why isn't this a benefit to us? And I think the real problem I see is a very outdated, misinformed registry of information for property owners. I mean, if we had all the information, then the process of using that email system would actually maybe even be a benefit and work more efficiently to get people to pay on time and maybe speed up the process of bringing the money to the table. So I like that. But could you tell me, do you feel like maybe it's just we don't have the proper information for that system to work properly?
The impression I'm getting, again, I'll confirm this tomorrow, the impression I'm getting is that it's because they have the email address, the contact information of the people who pay the bill, not the property owner per se. For example, and I'll use myself as an example. My wife and I recently bought a house. We have not paid a bill online yet. If the prior owners paid a bill online and this email went out today for my address, they would have gotten the email for the house that they no longer own. That in itself, seems to be the issue. And that's the biggest question for them tomorrow is, how is this rectified? And again, that goes back to my instinct that this is going to be if it's going to you, you need to opt out until the whoever the new bill owner goes on there and pays the bill.
So can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
So that being the case, and just hypothetically, if all the property owners' information was proper and they got that information and we were up to date with it, and then each time a house sold, we required that information so that we could send it to this company to keep it updated, do you think that would then turn that into a good benefit and be able to way to, keep real-time information in there if we were to get it up to date first? And then as people sold the property, make some sort of plan to follow up after that sale to send the new information to replace the old owner's information. If we could get that up to speed, would you think that this process will be more efficient? Because I kind of feel them getting that email is going to force them to maybe even pay the bill sooner, and that brings the money into the pot a little sooner, But just, do you think that if we could find a way to get that information update and then find a way with the assessor to work through new purchases, that we'd be able to utilize that system and make it very efficient?
I think it could. I think off the top of my head, I have two concerns with it. One is staff time. The second is I don't believe we get email addresses. I don't think they get that type of information. So then I don't know how they would obtain that information, is my concern with that. We don't collect, like in my office right now, we don't collect email addresses. We do everything, by mail.
Okay, so I guess there's a B part to that question. Wouldn't it be simple enough to just add that line on there that said, if you would like online reminders for your upcoming bills, please add your email address? Couldn't we add something just to the application to be able to get that? I mean, 9 out of 10 people will probably give it to you. So I'm thinking, wouldn't that be a benefit to put that on when a guy comes in and buy a house, we get the proper thing? And
to what application?
Well, when they're going to buy a property here in the city, that property has to get registered through the assessor for the new owner. So maybe whatever that paperwork is, they could probably have a little line there that said, hey, current email address of property owner.
To my knowledge, we don't have a city form that you complete at the time of sale. It all comes from the deeds from the county.
That's all a state designed and mandated form. And then we wait to get our copy of that before we update the tax records. So we don't have any forms. We don't have a role in the transfer of property in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. But my thought is there's still got to be a way that we would be able to get that information, even if it comes from the county. How long do we wait after a purchase of a property? How long do we wait to get that information? Because I think an updated landlord and property owner registry would be one of the strongest tools to have within our city.
Sharon updates property sales off the deeds monthly. It's that the email address is just simply not on the form. That's the problem. And it's state forms that we would need the information to be on.
And I would
So we would have to ask somebody at the state to add that?
Oh, Jesus.
Monica, do you want to
Get the state.
something?
No, well, I also think that there's also sometimes a lag, Jim, in how quickly they get recorded. So even like when the deed is filed, you have to, it's only as the deed gets filed, as the system gets updated, and then it gets sent to us. So I know when I was working with the land bank, there was somewhere upwards to 6 months delay in getting that information transferred. So, I think that it's a challenge all the way around until all of it gets some sort of electronically, but there's so many steps in that process of selling a house and recording a deed and filing the deed and there's so many other places that are involved.
Yeah.
Could I interject here, Council President? It's Mara, the clerk. I spoke to several dozen people today. We got a lot of phone calls in our office. I just want to mention to Andy for his discussion with them tomorrow, one of the issues seems to have been that when you add a new email address, it doesn't replace the old one, it adds to it. So people who had sold property, you know, several years ago were getting bills today. So I think that's one thing, is to make sure that when somebody enters a new email address associated with a property, they have to make sure that it replaces the old one. But I do think that one thing that would be helpful would be, in very large letters next to the Pay It Now button, there should be a statement that says, if you have sold this property since the last time you paid a tax bill online or a bill online, please ignore this, you know, delete, you know, like opt out and delete it, but something to say that to that effect. Because what the bill says currently is, if you have any questions about this, call the City of Troy. And so we got a lot of panicked phone calls from people today, and they think, I had to assure some people several times, I promise you, you really do not owe this money to the City of Troy, like it was a mistake. People are very concerned. So I think there needs to be kind of some bold lettering in there that really makes it clear to people not to worry if they've sold the property.
Very good points,
Or
Mara.
paid the
Thank
bill
you.
already. Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, I guess, how quickly does it get updated? If someone pays their bill by check, does their bill immediately disappear from online, or could they theoretically double pay it?
They could double pay. We update it. We update it as quick as we can.
Okay.
Again, it's a staff capacity thing.
No,
It's,
certainly.
you
And
know, we do
obviously,
it 1 to 2 times a week.
hopefully all this gets better integrated as we get better systems in the coming years. But I understand the current constraints. To me, the biggest theoretical benefit, and where we should be headed, is creating an option for people to go paperless. That would, I imagine, save a tremendous amount of staff time and make a lot of people's lives easier if they knew they could count on an email rather than a letter.
In order to do that, I need a new accounting system. The accounting system I do bills out of does not allow for paperless billing.
I fully support you in that effort. But
We'll get the
yeah,
legislation ready for the money.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Council President,
Councilmember Gully.
one other thing, I'm looking at my emails from today. It can't be the same one. Okay. So I received 2 emails, one at 12:04 and then one at 1:17. The one at 12:04 was for my first installment, and the one at 1:17 was for my second installment. So I don't know if that happened to anybody else.
So if you got an email, if you pay through escrow, you would have got an email today that your first installment is not paid because your escrow company does not pay your taxes until the last day to pay.
I don't have an escrow.
Have you paid your first installment? Well,
we got a reprieve to February 21st, brother.
Well, that's why you got
1,323 by the time I get to you.
He's taking advantage of every minute. I escrow, I did get an email, and as soon as I saw it, I freaked out. And then literally like 2 minutes later, Mara's email hit saying the snafu. So yeah.
Council President.
Councilmember Cummings still has the floor, and then we'll go to Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I got 4 emails because I apparently have used 2 different emails to sign up. But that goes to, yes, obviously they aren't replacing them, but I do think there may well be some people who don't want it to automatically replace them. If their spouse pays it 1 month, 1 year, that doesn't mean they don't want to keep getting the email about it. So I would be cautious about that. I think, honestly, I think you're right. It's going to end up with people going to have to opt out, but there needs to be better language in it for that.
Agreed. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just want to say, I pay mine through my escrow. I don't get any emails from you guys. So that must be
If you've never paid online, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I've never paid online. It's always been through escrow. So that's why I'm sitting here saying, all these stuff you guys are saying, you're getting emails. I'm like, I got nothing.
I paid a separate bill, a recycling bill, Councilmember Ash McPherson, on Express, but I'm escrowed. So that's why I got one.
Yeah. No, I never pay online.
Okay.
My bank pays,
Andy,
yes.
if you can keep us posted on that. Two other really quick housekeeping things. The governor proposed his 2022 executive budget last week for local communities, and Andy will brief us at some point, I'm sure. The legislature has to pass this. It's a proposal. If we don't get federal aid, it's really going to devastate local communities, but some good news. The AIM and the CHIPS look like they're okay. They're releasing all but 5% of the 20% that they initially withheld. So that's good news. Andy should be glad. It'll help our fourth quarter from last year, but going into 2022, the greater reliance, and Andy, I was curious about this one, on AIM, the lower the percentage. How do they gather that reliance test on how much you predicate your budget on AIM?
My reading of it is that they divided, so they took our budget and they divided 12,279,463 by your total general fund budget, and then came up with what I'm reading from that NICOM. Well, I read the NICOM thing and then I checked the state websites. It seems like they had a rule that said if it was X percent, it's a 2.5% cut, and then escalated from there. It appears in that document we have a 2.5% cut, obviously predicated on them passing the budget.
Okay, that wouldn't be so bad,
I did contact the state comptroller's office today to see when they will be releasing, the 50, I'll call it the 15%. They hadn't even, not that I'm doubting NICOM, because I believe it to be true. OSC has not, the people I talked to hasn't heard a word about it. So they're going to ask about, because my question is when is it coming?
Right. Because that's huge.
That is. And then it is going to, the mayor and I will, and deputy mayor are going to have a conversation about how we handle that. I had to look at it from an accounting perspective and then what we do from there. We do have all those bond anticipation notes sitting out there that we had issued, backed up because of that cut in AIM. So that is something that, that's going to be part of the conversation.
Great. Okay. Keep us posted on whatever you hear.
I will.
The CHIPS funding was maintained, and then obviously we've heard a lot about the legalization of cannabis for over 21 years of age. That certainly could provide additional revenue. So those were the biggies. I did want to also point, we just got an email from the mayor's office. There will be additional dates for in-person paying your taxes. So that just went out for folks out there. And for me, my last housekeeping, go Bills on Sunday. So, so those are mine. Does anyone else have housekeeping?
Just one thing on
you're talking about tax bills, and you're saying go Bills?
No, my Buffalo Bills. You know what? As I said it, I'm like, wait a minute.
Like,
go Buffalo, go Buffalo. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Just one thing on the tax bills.
Yes.
Part of that announcement is we are still doing an off-site collection on February 1st. We did change the location to the Knickerbocker Ice Rink. We will have social distancing measures in place. It will be somewhat similar to what we did in the summer. We're going to set it up so it's socially distanced, but indoors because of the weather. But that is a change that we're going to go to the Nick instead of for a park. The additional dates for in-person appointments are February 5th, 19th, and February 22nd. We do those every half hour from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are fully booked for tomorrow and the 29th. And I know that there are people looking for more appointments. So if you know of people who would like appointments, I would encourage them to schedule them as soon as possible. And I do want to thank, I think the treasurer's office, has been very flexible in working through this. So I do want to thank them for their patience and their hard work, because it is a lot more. We have seen more web payments, but even then there has still been a lot of mail, and they are, coming off of over the summer and in the spring when we fell behind a little bit because of the volume of mail, they are current today. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for their hard work during this. So I did just want to mention that as well.
Please thank them on behalf of the full council. Thank you, Andy. And I was pointing earlier to Councilmember Gully to schedule his appointment, of course, to pay his taxes. Further housekeeping discussion. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion on the motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night, guys.
Night.
Right.